I got a couple questions. Just to start us off, I'll probably have to go back to some others. I guess first of all, I just want to thank you all. I know we all have some other commitments that we're all missing out on. I want to thank you all for taking the time out to be with us today. I think in this process, we really wanted to ensure that, unlike a normal report where we have staff and go at it, we wanted to make sure that we gave an opportunity to you to come speak with us and speak to what you do. So I want to thank you for giving us your time. I wanted to just start off with you, John, and in our discussions we've had a few occasions and out in the public, you've been rightfully so very proud about the pledge that the aquarium made back in the mid-90s and the changes in terms of your decision to not capture any whales and going forward. And I wonder if you could just expand on that, because I was a much younger man back then, but I seem to recall in the mid-90s there had even be I seem to recall there being some discussion when the aquarium was contemplating tank expansion back in the 90s. And then I remember, the aquarium said, look, we're going to go in this new direction. So I'm wondering, for our benefit and for the folks that are here today, though, if you can elaborate on that decision, why the aquarium felt this was the way to go.
Well, I'd say three things. One is the prevailing public sentiment in Vancouver, and of course that has proved to be true. People don't feel any less. They don't feel any more positive about going out and catching wild cetaceans today than they did then. Secondly was the absolute practicality. When we looked at the populations and we talked to all the other accredited institutions, we said, okay, those institutions that want to keep cetaceans, can we maintain them without going back to the wild? And the answer was a calculated yes, we can do that. So we had some hope that we weren't doing irreparable damage to the aquarium. And then the third piece is that things change over time in terms of during those when the male killer whale died, and we spent a year trying to find a companion for Biosa, and we couldn't anywhere in the world, and we would have tried to buy one if we could. The Russians weren't catching wild ones or anything then, so there just weren't an available well, much less one that met the criteria. So we went through, and we knew from decades of participating in the field research on killer whales in BC that they're a very social species, and didn't believe that Biosa should live by herself. So that's why we swallowed hard and said, okay, it's kind of like trading away Wayne Gretzky from a tourism attraction point of view, but okay, that's the right thing to do. When we did that, we went through a strategic plan around the aquarium's future, and we recognized that we're on the coast of BC. Our first focus is obviously BC, because that's where we are and we're here. Our second focus, we reinvigorated a long-term focus on the Arctic. It's arguably 45% of our country. Most Canadians have never been there. They don't know much about it. And it's the place on Earth that's changing fastest and most quickly with climate change. And we said, well, that interest isn't just beluga whales. The issue, it's no mistake we have this play of little brown Arctic cod and the belugas. That's the keystone species in the Arctic. Their food during part of their life is on the bottom of the ice. What happens when the ice melts? The Arctic cod population crashes. That's what all those marine mammals and ducks and geese go up there to eat every summer. So it's going to be a chain reaction. So we're working in everything from the human side in the Arctic all the way through to the beluga whales. So,
no, I realize that, you've given us a great understanding through our tours and discussions, but I'm just trying to wind back the tape just for those early days, because again, from what I remember, there was talk of expansion. I'm trying to sort of piece together the sequence. There had been talk of expansion, and then was it because of the death of the orca that you reevaluated all those factors you mentioned, that there's a shifting of the gears and said, well, maybe we shouldn't expand and we should reevaluate our cetacean captivity program? I'm just trying to understand the starting point, because we're all here today, but this is a conversation that's
Yeah.
going on for over 20 years.
Well, it's been going on longer than that, because I've been here 21 years, and before I got here, and I think even before Clint got here, the aquarium had a proposal to build a major new, giant killer whale area in sort of on the northwest corner of the aquarium. And that went through all kinds of process in park board. And at the end of the day, I don't know if the park board decided no, or if the aquarium decided no, but sometime in the mid-90s or mid-80s, people said, well, that's maybe not such a good thing to do. And that set off a reevaluation. And so, yeah, you can plan long-term as much as you want, but you also have to deal with the realities of what happens today or next week or next year. So you kind of edit within that framework.
I understand that, and at the risk of,
So
but it takes back to that. I'm trying to just understand the sequence. Was it the death of the male orca?
no, that came in 1999.
Or 99, okay.
Right? Yeah.
So,
well
but
after
in the
96.
mid-90s, though, again, from what I recall, if I'm mistaken, let me know, I thought there was talk of expansion. And then it seems to be in the mid-90s, and it was in 96 when that practice stopped, and as you said, you guys voluntarily moved forward with some new rules around cetaceans activity. I'm just trying to understand what was the change
I don't
in
think there was
task.
any expansion on the table in the mid-90s.
No.
I think that whole discussion that led to, us saying we'll no longer capture from the wild didn't really have anything to do with expansion, because there was nothing on the table at the time.
So was this a mutual sort of approaching of park board, because some dialogue, I think there might have been some dialogue in 95, but in 96, obviously, with the park board, discussions in the summer of 96, the changes that were brought in the fall of 96, was this you contacted the chair of the park board and said, hey, look, we should sit down and reevaluate this? I'm trying to understand.
No, the park board had some motions on the table
Yeah.
to limit cetaceans in the aquarium, and that resulted in several nights of public hearings down at the Robinson Square. And during that process, we stepped back and looked at our future, and we said, on one hand, do we want to keep cetaceans? Do we think they're important? And we said, yeah, okay, we do. Can we operate? What does leadership look like? Leadership look like saying we don't need to go to the wild again. So we proposed that to the park board. And the park board of the day said, that's a great step forward.
So there had been discussions of some limitation of cetaceans by park board, public consultation process, and dialogue with the aquarium. The bylaws that we have here today essentially were sort of a product of this dialogue that were ultimately approved and stand to this day.
Yeah, and then they were tweaked, slightly adjusted one piece of the bylaw during the 2006 public consultation.
That being that the bylaws were taken out of the terms of the lease.
Yeah, well, if that happened,
Yeah.
that was unilateral by the park board. They
Yeah.
basically said take or leave it, so we had no choice. But no, the four conditions under which cetaceans could be maintained in the park, the
Yeah.
fourth condition around stranded animals was clarified.
That's right, that's
And it
right.
was clarified through public consultation, and then the board acted on that public consultation.
Right.
And revised the wording in that fourth condition.
That's right. It's funny, when I was going back and doing some research, I was digging up old leases of the aquarium documents for sure, and getting thicker and thicker. Today's lease compared to early leases, man, how do people do business back then? But there was interesting, because I found a clause in a 1999 lease, and it really caught my eye, and it just seemed to have disappeared, and I don't know where it went or when it left us, or when it left the lease that we have with you. I'm assuming it might have been extracted when the bylaws were taken out of the lease in 2006. But there was N, there was all the cetacean bylaws, but then there was an O that said, investigate and, where viable, implement alternatives to whale exhibition and research whale release and whale rehabilitation. And in brackets, and for the purpose of this clause, it is agreed that viable means an alternative to which the society and the park board mutually agree will maintain the financial viability of the aquarium. And that, I can't find, that's gone. And so I guess the question was, that was in the 1999 lease. My best guess is it left us 2006. And I'm wondering though, regardless, if there was actually any work done by the aquarium to investigate those alternatives, and if you could share those with us.
Well, yeah, I mean, so on the stranding reintroduction side, I mean, Marty has done a pretty good job of addressing that work. I mean, that goes on today. The goal is always to get them reintroduced. The problem is when you can't, for whatever reason. And I think we understand today much more clearly about how you judge that and who judges it and other governments involved in that. So that work has continued. And since then, there's been a tremendous amount of work done by academicians. The University of Queensland, UBC, the World Zoo and Aquarium Organization, studies coming out of Bristol, the University of Bristol in England, about, okay, yes, you can have videos. Are they as effective as seeing the real thing? And the answer is no. Videos are a tool, an important tool in education. But it's like, you want your second grader going to school and watching a video screen all day, or you want them to watch a teacher who uses a video screen as a tool. And that's basically where that research is. So that work, the study and evaluation continues to this day. I think that was part of that whole block. The part where it just took out of the agreement and in crafting the bylaw. Because from 96 to there, it was both in the lease and in a matching bylaw.
Yes.
The two things matched each other. It's kind of like covering all bases.
Yeah.
I to this day don't know why the park board decided to take it out of the agreement and do it just by bylaw.
Well, in talking to previous commissioners, I think that they did that because, in '06, because it was their intention that a future board would at least have the option to review the bylaws. And of course, if it was in the terms of the lease, then we would have been locked in, and that would have been that. So I think it's clear as to why they did that. I'm just really, and again, no one, unfortunately, turnover of staff and lost of institutional knowledge. We don't know what happened to O. We'll never know. But again, I guess what I'm gleaning from you, John, though, is that
we don't disagree with O at all. We're actually working on 3 or 4 parts of O all the time.
But ultimately, would you say that your overall alternatives are always good? But I believe if I understand your words correctly, they're to accentuate, but deemed by the aquarium to not really be. At the end of the day, it's really the live. I heard in presentations, it's the live whales that really are a key to the financial viability. If I understand what you're saying, that the alternatives are great as an add-on value, but your, of course, organization feels that really it's the whales that are the.
I think it's more key to the mission first. I mean, you've heard from Lauren, and you'll hear more from other speakers that have come over the next few days. Financial. There are financial considerations. What would happen to attendance? So, as you've heard, the aquarium pays for most of the science, most of the rescue and rehabilitation does conservation work from the front gate. So, if that's diminished, those programs would naturally be diminished, and that affects both the mission of the organization. And the question is, Marty was being rather tactful. I mean, if our marine mammal rescue, we don't have cetaceans to care for, I suspect he'll leave. Well, that will diminish the capacity of our rescue effort, and then you kind of go into that downward spiral.
And again, I guess it was just trying to drill down into, again, it's uncovering the past, past agreements and understandings that our predecessors had with the organization and efforts to address this issue, this complex issue. And obviously, there was the intent to look at alternatives that either didn't work out, or the prevailing attitude said, no, that's not.
Well, I think the discussion of the day, we had a fairly robust discussion of this either or. Is a video screen just as good as seeing the living thing? And there was, of course, a lot of debate, and there was less academic literature than there is today. But I think that discussion continues, because I can't think of a zoo or aquarium that isn't trying to figure out how to better, more effectively engage people.
I appreciate that. I'll park. I've got some other ones, but I think we've got others, commissioners that are giving me the eye. So very discreetly, but I know I'm getting the look. Commissioner Sharma, I believe.